My name is James, and for 3 years, I thought I had it all: love, success, and a future I could trust. I built my business from nothing, one tiny organic grocery store that eventually grew into a thriving chain across 3 states. I worked through nights on a floor mattress, pitched to suppliers who laughed me off, and clawed my way into a market no one believed I could touch. And Wendy, she was there through most of it, or so I thought. We got engaged 8 months ago. Everything seemed perfect, until it wasn't. I wanted a prenup, not because I didn't trust her, but because I'd built something worth protecting. She agreed, smiled, told me she respected my hustle. But 2 weeks ago, I found a version of our prenup she secretly rewrote. It gave her control of half my business, including profits from future stores I haven't even opened yet. And that was just the beginning. She wasn't acting alone. This is the story of how my fiancée and her charming, manipulative brother tried to gut everything I'd ever worked for. I canceled the wedding and made one move that ruined them both. I'm not one for sentiment, but when I met Wendy, something about her made me drop my guard. She was quick-witted, self-assured, and had this way of making you feel like you were the only one in the room. I was 31 then, already neck-deep in the chaos of running my own company. She worked in social media marketing, mostly boutique fashion brands, and we met at a local charity event where I was donating leftover produce. She was there managing the brand booth for some clothing startup. What caught me wasn't just her beauty, though she had that in spades. It was how she listened, really listened. When I told her I spent nights sleeping on a cot in my office during the early years, she didn't flinch or try to romanticize it. She just nodded like she got it, like she respected the grind. I built my company from nothing. 10 years ago, I opened a tiny organic grocery store in a rundown strip mall most people avoided after sunset. Everyone said I was out of my mind. Competing with big supermarket chains? Selling organic produce at fair prices? It sounded like a passion project destined for failure. But I wasn't just trying to sell kale. I wanted to create something better. A place where people could shop healthy without feeling punished for not having Whole Foods money. I hustled for supplier deals, learned logistics the hard way, and pushed through staffing nightmares. Some nights, I crashed behind the stockroom just to make it to morning inventory. For a while, it felt like the store owned me, not the other way around. But it worked. One location turned into 3, then 5, then 12. Now we're across 3 states and expanding our digital logistics for online delivery. It took grit, focus, and sacrifice. A lot of that sacrifice came from me never letting anyone get too close. Until Wendy. She saw the work ethic. She saw the vision. At least, that's what she said. And I believed her. After a year of dating, she started coming with me to community food events. I liked that. I thought we were aligned. 2 independent people with their own careers who supported each other's growth. Wendy never pretended to understand grocery logistics, and I never asked her to. But she was curious enough to ask the right questions when I vented about freight costs or vendor delays. She'd sit across from me at dinner, nodding as I ran numbers in my head, offering quiet encouragement. When I proposed, I did it privately. No big stage, no friends hiding behind bushes with a camera. Just the 2 of us on a hike overlooking the city. She cried. I did too. And in that moment, I was all in. I thought, this is the woman I want beside me. Through expansion, through failure, through everything. Still, I wasn't stupid. I brought up a prenup early, not out of distrust, but because the business wasn't just a paycheck. It was my life's work. I told her, this isn't about not trusting you. It's about protecting what I've built if the worst ever happens. And she nodded. She said she understood. Said it was fair. In fact, she said more than that. She told her friends how reasonable I was, that I'd offered a generous settlement structure in case things didn't work out, one that scaled with the length of our marriage. She even joked once, most guys would never be that considerate, especially ones with as much on the line as you. And I believed her. I set up an emergency savings account in her name, gave her access to a credit line for anything she needed, never wanted her to feel financially trapped. I thought I was showing trust, respect. I didn't realize I was handing over the first pieces of leverage. At first, it was subtle, almost affectionate. Wendy would say things like, married couples should share everything, right? Or she'd send me links to articles about 50/50th splits in marriage, even in business. I didn't think much of it. Cold feet, pre-wedding jitters. That's what I told myself. But then she started asking about the company. Not about the people or the mission, but about numbers, margins, expansion forecasts. She began sitting in on my calls, claiming she was just relaxing nearby, but I could feel her listening, like she was studying. Soon after, she told me she wanted to be more involved. She pitched herself as a branding consultant for the company, wanted an office, a title. Her background was in social media for boutique fashion brands. Organic grocery retail is a different world, but she said she could learn fast. That's when I noticed the spending. It started with a few shopping bags. Then came the $900 blazer, $2,000 retreats, $500 spa days, all charged to the shared credit card. When I gently brought it up, she smiled and said, "What's yours is mine, babe." That line stuck with me longer than it should have. She wasn't just spending more, she was testing boundaries, testing me. Still, I wanted to believe the best. Maybe she really did want to contribute. Maybe she just didn't know how to say, "I'm scared of being left behind." But that unease in my gut kept growing. And then I found it. A different version of our prenup, hidden in my office files. The font was wrong. The clauses weren't what we agreed to. She'd added provisions, business ownership, decision-making power, profit share on expansions we hadn't even made yet. It wasn't a draft, it was a setup. I found the altered prenup by accident, buried beneath some vendor contracts in my home office. At first, I thought it was a duplicate copy. Then I saw the wording, paragraphs I had never approved, clauses granting Wendy shared control of my company, rights to future profits, authority in business decisions, even earnings from expansions that didn't exist yet. It hit like a punch to the chest. I stood there frozen, rereading it again and again, hoping I'd missed something, that there was an explanation. But there wasn't. She hadn't slipped this in by mistake. She'd planned it. I called her and asked her to come over. My voice stayed even, which surprised me. I didn't want her to know what I knew. I wanted to see her face when she saw the documents, both the real prenup and the version she rewrote. She arrived an hour later, breezing in with that same overly casual energy. Greeted me with a kiss, called me babe, asked what was going on. But the moment she saw the paperwork on my desk, the color drained from her face. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just picked up both copies and asked, "Can you explain why these are different?" She blinked. "What do you mean?" I pointed to the rewritten sections, ownership, profit share, veto rights. "Oh, those?" she said, almost brushing it off. "Those are just standard clauses. Mark said they're smart to include." Mark, her brother, a man who'd failed at marriage 3 times and couldn't keep a job for more than a year. Now, apparently, her legal consultant. "You're letting Mark advise you on our prenup?" I asked. "He's been through divorce. He knows how guys like you think." "Guys like me?" I stared at her. "What do you think I've been doing these last 10 years? Hiding money? Laying a trap?" Her tone sharpened. "I just want to make sure I'm protected. What if you decide to leave after a few years?" "You already had protection," I said. "The original agreement gave you financial security. This isn't about safety, it's about control." She looked right at me and said, "Mark told me to start documenting how you react, just in case." And there it was. I wasn't looking at my fiancé anymore. I was looking at someone running a script, someone who'd already chosen sides, and it wasn't mine. In that moment, I understood. This wasn't an impulsive mistake. It wasn't fear or misunderstanding. It was betrayal, planned, measured, and executed like business strategy. Wendy didn't come home that night, and I didn't reach out. I wasn't interested in hearing another word she rehearsed with Mark. The next morning, she showed up at my office unannounced, right in the middle of a client meeting. My assistant looked panicked, but Wendy pushed past her like she owned the place. "You can't keep ignoring me," she said, eyes blazing. "This is my future, too." I glanced at my client, who was already gathering his things. Wendy had made her point. After he left, I shut the door behind us. "You don't get to storm into my business and hijack meetings. Mark says I need to assert myself. You're acting like I don't exist. I clenched my jaw. This isn't your business, Wendy. Her voice rose. I'm going to be your wife. That makes it mine too. There it was again. The assumption, the entitlement. Mark told me all about how men like you operate, she continued. Hiding money, locking women out, using prenups to control us. This has nothing to do with Mark, I snapped. He doesn't know a damn thing about building something from the ground up. She crossed her arms. He knows enough to tell me I should be on the bank accounts before the wedding. I stared at her, barely recognizing the woman I once trusted with everything. Why are you letting him poison your mind? Because he's the only one protecting me. That night, I didn't sleep. I reviewed everything, security logs, financial requests, flagged emails, and I found it. Wendy had forwarded confidential projections to a Gmail account. The username? M.A. Mark's initials. That was it. I texted him. The next day, we met at a quiet coffee shop. I let him talk first, full of smug confidence. She deserves 75%, you know. For putting up with you, he sneered. I stared at him. How'd you get company numbers, Mark? He paused. Maybe Wendy left some things lying around. I hit record on my phone. You're done. He turned red. You won't get away with this. I smiled. Neither will you. I sent the recording to my lawyer before I left the table. I didn't hear from Mark for 2 days after that coffee shop ambush. But Wendy? She unleashed hell. First came the angry texts. How dare you record my brother? You violated everything we built. Mark was right about you all along. Then came the softer ones. I still love you. Please don't throw this away over a misunderstanding. I was scared, that's all. I didn't respond. I forwarded every message to my lawyer. 2 days later, she used her spare key and walked into my house like she hadn't nearly helped orchestrate corporate theft. Her tone was righteous, defiant even. You ambushed Mark. You recorded him. In a one-party consent state, I said calmly. And he admitted everything. She crossed her arms. You set him up. No, he exposed himself. I pulled up the file, played a snippet. Mark, in his own voice, bragging about how Wendy promised him a role in my company once she secured a share. I watched her listen. Her eyes didn't widen. Her lips didn't tremble. She looked disappointed, like the plan failed, not like a woman who realized she'd been manipulated. Then came the pivot. You shouldn't have cameras in your office. I installed them after you started going through my paperwork. You're controlling. No, I was protecting the company I built from the ground up. And then, like always, Mark says, Stop, I snapped. He's not your conscience, and he sure as hell doesn't get to dictate the future of my business. She hesitated. Then the tears came. I didn't know, she whispered. I thought he was helping me. I just wanted to feel safe. I didn't want to end up like his ex-wives. You're not his ex-wife, Wendy. You're the woman I proposed to. The woman who said she supported me. Then turned around and rewrote a contract behind my back. She cried harder, and for a moment I felt that ache, that instinct to comfort her. But the truth was louder. She'd seen what I had, chosen to believe Mark, and acted on it, until the plan unraveled. That was the last time we spoke face to face. But the story didn't end there. A week later, I got a call from her younger sister, Emily. She'd borrowed Mark's laptop to help him with a resume. What she found instead was a digital playbook, a detailed document titled Strategic Leverage Timeline. Inside were spreadsheets with payout calculations, projected divorce dates, notes on how to isolate me from legal counsel, even ideas for how Wendy could paint herself as a victim. The worst part? There were texts between Mark and someone he called TM, a supposed legal advisor. Their messages were clear. She's too trusting. Use that. Once they're married, we can get majority stake. After that, he's just a formality. Emily gave the laptop to her parents, and when Wendy saw the full truth, something in her broke. She showed up crying outside my office, begging security to let her speak to me. When I came down, she looked like a shell of herself, sleepless, messy, hollow. I didn't know, she said. Please, James, I didn't know he planned it all. I believe that, I said. But you went along with it, until it didn't work. She begged me to forgive her, said she'd sign the original prenup, said she'd never ask for the business again, said she'd learned her lesson. But that was the problem. It wasn't about the business anymore. You didn't just try to take money, I told her. You tried to take trust, and that's something I don't give twice. She left, but not quietly. She went on a $122,000 shopping spree using the emergency credit card I gave her last year, intended for true emergencies. When I confronted her, she said, "I deserve something for everything I've been through." I canceled the card mid-call. She screamed. Then came the emotional blackmail. "Mark says you can't cancel a wedding without a settlement. You owe me for emotional distress. I'm keeping the ring and staying in the apartment until I'm ready to leave." My lawyer said to record everything. I did. Her last Hail Mary was legal, a letter from a new attorney claiming emotional damages. But once we submitted Mark's files, the recordings, the security logs, that lawyer dropped her immediately. Mark, meanwhile, is being investigated for attempted corporate espionage and wire fraud. Apparently, he tried selling my internal data to a competitor through a third party. Wendy's not speaking to him anymore. But honestly, that doesn't absolve her. Because she didn't just get manipulated, she participated. Until she got caught. I've changed everything since then. Locked down my systems, rotated my staff, reviewed every policy, and I don't let anyone near the core of the company unless they've earned it over time. Some people say heartbreak reveals who you are. I disagree. I think it reveals who they've always been, once they think you're not looking. I used to think betrayal came like a lightning bolt. Sudden, obvious, unmistakable. But the truth? It seeps in quietly, through casual comments, through someone else's advice whispered just often enough, through the way a person looks at you like an opportunity instead of a partner. Wendy didn't stab me in the back. She set the table, lit the candles, smiled across from me, and slowly started carving away at everything I built. I don't hate her. I wish I could. But what I feel now isn't hate. It's clarity. Because loving someone doesn't mean ignoring the moment they shift from us to me. It doesn't mean letting someone rewrite your boundaries just because they claim it's for protection. People like Mark, they're easy to spot. Loud, bitter, transparent. But people like Wendy, they take longer to understand. Because they start with love, then twist it into leverage. And I let her. That's the part that still bothers me. Not the money, not the business, not even the embarrassment. It's that I saw the signs and still wanted to believe she was the same woman who used to listen when I vented about late shipments and bad vendor calls. She wasn't. Maybe she never was. She asked for another chance, said she'd changed. But here's the thing. When someone only learns the lesson after the consequences hit, they don't change, they adapt. And I'm done being a test run for someone else's growth. I'm not bitter, I'm careful. There's a difference. I know now that trust isn't something you build once and forget about. You guard it, you test it, you honor it. Because once it breaks, it doesn't crack. It shatters. And no apology, no amount of crying in a parking lot, no rewritten prenup can glue it back together. So if you're listening to this, and you feel something's off in your life, in your relationship, in the way someone's treating your dreams, trust your gut. Love doesn't require you to be blind. Some people don't change. They just finally show you who they really are. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who could sell the ground out from under her husband's feet. I never saw myself as ruthless. Calculated, maybe, but not cruel. But sometimes, survival looks a lot like revenge. And sometimes, the only way to save yourself is to walk away from everything you built. My name is Clara Wynne, and this is the story of how I turned silence into strength, disrespect into distance, and one insult, just one phrase, into a reason to burn the house down. Not metaphorically. They called me just the ATM. They underestimated the power of the woman funding the roof over their heads. This isn't just a story about family betrayal or a broken marriage. It's a blueprint for every woman who's ever been made to feel small in her own home. It's a warning, a confession, and maybe a little bit of poetry. Because when they said I didn't matter, when they invaded, rearranged, took, mocked, and dismissed me, what they didn't know was that I had already started writing the ending, and I always finish what I start. It started with a knock I didn't hear. I was on a video call with a client, trying to pitch a marketing strategy that had taken me 2 weeks to develop. I remember the ring on the doorbell flashing faintly on the security panel, but I ignored it. My husband, Darren, could handle it. At least that's what I thought. When I came downstairs, I stopped cold in the hallway. There were bags, actual garbage bags, scattered across the foyer, and voices. Lorna's shrill tone cut through the air like a blade. "We'll just need the guest room for a little while," she said, already towing off her shoes like she lived there. Behind her, Malcolm gave me a sheepish shrug, and Trent, their golden child, their adult son with a fake tan and ego to match, smirked like he owned the place. Darren emerged from the kitchen, avoiding my eyes. "I was going to tell you," he said quickly. "You invited them to stay? They've been evicted. They have nowhere else. And you thought here, without asking me, was the solution? They're family, Clara." That was the beginning of the end. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply walked upstairs, closed the door to my office, and stared at the screensaver blinking across my desktop. They were family, and I was... what? A landlord. A paycheck. The first few days, I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. I worked from home 3 days a week, and during those hours, I watched my home slowly transform into something alien. The guest room disappeared under Lorna's floral bedspread and 5 too many throw pillows. Trent and Malcolm claimed the basement, blasting music and arguing about sports. My espresso machine vanished from the kitchen counter. When I asked Lorna, she waved dismissively. "I moved it to make room for my juicer. You'll love the green smoothies. Great for the gut." She said this while sipping from a champagne flute, at noon. Trent started using my car. No ask, no explanation. One afternoon, I came outside and it was just gone. When I confronted him, he laughed. "You weren't using it. Relax." I filled the tank. Well, halfway. Evenings with Darren became exercises in frustration. He was tired. Work was stressful. They were trying their best. "Just give them time," he kept saying. "It's only temporary." Temporary turned into a week, then 2. By the 3rd, I had memorized the sound of Lorna's laugh echoing from the living room, usually during her marathon of trashy reality TV. She played it loud, claiming the noise helped her feel less depressed. The dishwasher broke. No one mentioned it. I discovered it when I stepped into a puddle of warm, soapy water at midnight. While I mopped it up, Trent asked if I'd bought more oat milk. "You know I'm bulking, Cal. Don't slack on the protein." Cal. Not even my name anymore. Just a short syllable they could spit like gum when they were done chewing on my patience. The real blow came when I walked into my home office, my sanctuary, and found Lorna inside, rearranging the bookshelves. "Your decor's very... stiff," she said. "Don't you want it to feel more welcoming? Like a family lives here?" "A family," I wanted to scream. Instead, I watched her place a ceramic angel beside my degree from Stanford, and took a breath so deep it made my ribs ache. Darren kept dodging conversations. Any attempt at boundaries was met with, "Please don't make this harder than it is." But it wasn't hard for him. He got his mother's approval. He got peace. I was the one paying for it. I began keeping a log. Not just receipts, but a mental one too. Every dig, every invasion, every time someone used my things without asking, every time Darren stayed quiet, every time I stopped recognizing the house I had once loved. By the fourth week, I realized something bone deep. They weren't looking for a place to stay. They were looking for a place to claim, and I had let them in. But here's the thing no one saw coming, especially not Lorna with her passive-aggressive homemaker routine. I was watching, and I was planning. It all snapped the day Lorna burst into my office during a live team meeting. No knock, no warning, just her voice slicing through the air. "We're out of almond milk. Trent needs more protein powder, and that cleaning service you use? Subpar. I found a better one. Bit pricier, but it's worth it." I stared at her. "I'm in a meeting." She waved me off like I was a child interrupting grown-up talk. "You should really consider putting my name on the deed. You're barely home these days." That was the moment something cold and calculating inside me took root. That night, lying next to Darren, I whispered, "Are they even looking for their own place?" He turned away. "They just need time." No. What they needed was someone to fund their lifestyle, and I had played the role far too well. I emailed Seraphine before sunrise. Her reply was instant. "You want out?" I stared at my walls now covered in Lorna's hideous art prints. "Yes, I want out." At the bank, I opened a private account, moved nearly all our money. The teller raised an eyebrow. "Protecting my investments," I smiled. "Family situation." When I got home, Lorna was leading a contractor through my kitchen. "We're thinking marble countertops," she chirped. "Nothing but the best for our family." I stood in silence, watching her motion around with my credit card still in her hand. Darren walked in, looked around like it was already finished. "Mom's got vision." I smiled. She always knows exactly what she wants. Later that night, I boxed my grandmother's china, rescuing it from where Lorna had buried it behind her mismatched plates. I labeled it with a note. Mine, always was. The next morning, I found a note on my car. Borrowed it again. Be back later, Trent. I took an Uber to work. Tia noticed the tension. "You okay?" "Just family stuff," she chuckled. "My cousin stayed with me once. Took months to get rid of her. I had to get creative." Creative. That word stuck. That evening, I came home to a full-blown book club in my living room. 8 strangers sipping wine and complimenting Lorna on my furniture. "Your house is perfect for hosting," she beamed. I smiled. "You know what?" I said. "I need to make a call." I walked into my office, locked the door behind me, and dialed Seraphine. "Is that investor still interested?" She didn't miss a beat. "Cash buyer, no questions, close in 10 days. I looked around the room. The last room they hadn't managed to ruin. "It's time," I said. "Let's sell the house." That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed beside Darren, listening to the rhythmic hum of his snoring. Downstairs, Trent's video game explosions echoed off the walls. Lorna's late-night voice floated up through the vents. Something about curtain patterns and color palettes. My house had become a theme park of noise and entitlement. And me? I was just the ticket booth. I got up quietly and walked to my office, the only space in the house they hadn't violated, yet. I opened the email from Seraphine and clicked through the investor's terms. Cash buyer, 10-day close, no contingencies. It was so easy, it was terrifying. Still, I needed time. Not to decide, I was already decided, but to prepare. To extract myself from the wreckage without alerting the termites still chewing through my foundation. The next morning, I went to the bank and opened a new account. The teller was young, kind. "Are you planning something special, ma'am?" "Just being careful," I said with a smile. "Family, you know." She nodded like she understood. I transferred nearly everything. Savings, stocks, even the rainy day fund Darren didn't know existed. I kept just enough in the joint account to keep up appearances. When I returned home, Lorna was leading a contractor through the kitchen. "Marble counters here, double ovens there," she said, gesturing grandly. "And this wall needs to go. It ruins the energy." "My kitchen," I said, tight-lipped. She smiled. Our kitchen. Darren loves the idea. Darren stepped in, oblivious. Mom has a great eye. This'll be amazing. I nodded, the edges of my smile sharp enough to draw blood. You're right. It's time for changes. That weekend, I started phase 1. Small, unnoticeable packing. Photo albums. My grandmother's china. Hidden away since Lorna had shoved it to the highest shelf. Personal files, jewelry, passports. I told them I was decluttering for spring. Lorna praised my spiritual awakening. I smiled. Let her think I'd finally broken. Then the message came. From Tia. A blurry photo of Darren. At a bar. Arm around a woman. Blonde, laughing, kissing. My cousin works there, Tia wrote. Said he's been coming in with her for months. Always when you work late. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. It didn't even surprise me. It just solidified what I already knew. He'd been gone long before I started planning my exit. I was just giving his body a place to crash while his soul wandered elsewhere. I forwarded the picture to my private email and deleted the text. Fuel, not fire. I waited until the family was distracted by a weekend sale at the outlet mall and had the buyers walk through the house. They loved it, made an offer on the spot. Seraphine texted, "They can close next Friday, just say the word." I said it. From that moment on, every interaction in that house was a scene in my final act. Darren thought I was softening. "It means a lot that you're supporting Mom's vision," he said one night. I leaned into his hug, recalling the photo of him nuzzling that woman's neck. "Anything for family," I whispered. Even Trent dropped his attitude. "You're kinda chill these days," he said. "Not so uptight." I nodded, trying to be better. I even let Lorna rope me into helping her pick backsplash samples. "We should celebrate our progress," she said. "Dinner at Solano's, on you, of course." "Of course." While they clinked glasses at the restaurant, where no reservation had ever been made, I was 2 blocks away, signing final papers in Seraphine's car. My hands didn't shake. That week, I rented a storage unit. Movers came while they were out. I told Lorna it was a furniture delivery. She clapped like a delighted toddler. I boxed up my memories, my peace, my freedom. Then came the final touch. I sent Darren a hotel voucher for one night, left it in his desk drawer with a single note. One night, one chance to realize what you lost. Friday would be the end. They didn't know it, but they were living in a countdown. And I was finally breathing. Friday came quietly. I made pancakes that morning. Lorna talked about a koi pond for the backyard. Trent asked if I'd still take them to the water park. I smiled and said yes. As soon as they left, I pulled the hidden for sale sign from my trunk. Seraphine met me in the backyard, and we planted it out of view from the house. By 11 a.m., the buyers arrived, young, eager, and ready. They walked through my home like it was already theirs. I watched silently as they admired the molding, the lighting, the layout. Lorna had called soulless. We signed the papers in my kitchen, right on the granite Lorna wanted to rip out. I handed them the keys, and we shook hands like it was just another business deal. That afternoon, I began quietly packing what was left. Jewelry, documents, my grandmother's china. I told Darren it was spring decluttering. He smiled, kissed my forehead, and said, "I love this new version of you." I checked into a hotel nearby. When Seraphine texted, "Deal closed. Money's in," I poured a glass of champagne and watched the city breathe without me in it. The next few days, I orchestrated it all. Movers came while the family was out. I boxed up my life and let them keep their delusions. On Thursday night, I left dinner instructions and a fake restaurant reservation, just enough of a distraction to clear the way. Friday, 2 p.m. sharp, movers returned with the new owners. By the time Lorna and Darren pulled in at 2:45, the locks had been changed. Their things were on the curb in garbage bags, exactly how they had arrived. From my hotel suite, I watched it all on camera. Darren's face as he read my note, Lorna's scream, Trent's rage, Malcolm's silence. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I simply whispered, "It's done." From the hotel room, I watched it unfold in perfect silence. The movers finished on time. The new owners arrived with their keys and checklist. I handed over the last signed paper and left a printed inventory of everything the family had brought. Cheap figurines, discount cookware, 4 garbage bags of clothes. Nothing more. At 2:47 p.m., Darren's SUV pulled into the driveway. Lorna's car followed seconds later. Trent, predictably, was blasting music as he stepped out, oblivious. They all froze. Unfamiliar cars, strangers on the porch. Locks changed, bags on the curb, just like the day they arrived. Lorna marched up the walkway, heels clicking like war drums. "Excuse me? What is the meaning of this?" The new owner, calm, confident, stepped forward. "We live here now." "You what?" Darren barked. "I bought the house, from Mrs. Wynne. Paperwork's inside. You're trespassing." Darren's eyes darted across the lawn. "No, this is our house. There must be a mistake." The new owner pointed to the envelope taped to the door. Darren tore it open. Inside, divorce papers, hotel voucher, and a single line written in my neat, cold hand. "You chose your side. Live with it." The camera feed caught Lorna's face twisting. "Call the police. She can't do this." "She can," the new owner replied. And she did. Griffin tried to shoulder his way inside. The movers blocked him. "You have 30 minutes to collect your belongings," the owner warned. "Then I call the cops." Trent kicked the curb. "This is insane!" Malcolm stood still, staring at the bags. His silence spoke volumes. Darren read the note again, slower this time. She really left. Yes, I had. Weeks ago, really. My phone buzzed, voicemail after voicemail. "Darren, we can fix this. Please, Cal." Lorna, "Ungrateful little—" Trent, "Where's my gaming console? I had saved files." I turned the phone face down. I had said everything I needed to say. Lorna was still yelling when the rain started. A heavy, relentless downpour, like the sky itself was fed up with them. They scrambled to shove bags into trunks, soaking wet, mascara running, insults flying. The new owner stood calmly under a black umbrella, watching them flail. It was poetry. By evening, the curb was empty. The house was no longer mine. The storm had passed, but not for them. And me? I sat by the hotel window with a glass of wine and no regret. Seraphine called. "It worked." "Every step," I said. She laughed. "Lorna tried to throw a purse at the new owner. Trent broke his phone screaming at customer service. Darren looked like a lost puppy." "Good," I said, sipping. "They'll remember this." And they would, because when you let people walk all over you long enough, they forget you're capable of standing. They forget you own the floor they're walking on. But I hadn't forgotten. I'd just been waiting for the perfect moment to pull it out from under them. And now, they were falling. The first morning in my new apartment, I woke up to something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. No footsteps, no shouting, no fake smiles or passive-aggressive critiques. Just quiet. My quiet. Later that day, a plain envelope arrived. No return address. Inside was a short note, written in uneven handwriting. "Thank you for doing what Darren never could. You set us free." Malcolm. I didn't cry. I pinned the note to my new bulletin board, next to a therapy appointment card and a lease with only my name on it. That evening, I recorded the first episode of my podcast, The Exit Plan. I called it Therapy with a Microphone, a space for women like me who stayed too long, gave too much, and finally chose themselves. I opened with one line. If they call you the ATM, cancel the card, change the locks, and invest in yourself. And women listened. They wrote in with stories so familiar it hurt. Mothers-in-law who never left, husbands who stayed silent, families who drained them dry and called it love. Then came a package from the new homeowners. Inside, my grandmother's china, wrapped with care. "Found this tucked away," the note said. "Thought it belonged with someone who appreciated it." They were right. I placed the set in my new cabinet, not as a reminder of what I lost, but of what I reclaimed. Darren kept calling. I never picked up. Trent texted, "I got a job." I replied, "Good. Forgiveness can wait. For now, I'm focused on me." I ended the episode with one final line. Sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. And in that silence, I finally heard myself,